The show starts in 1 minute.
Please remember to replace the speaker on the post when you leave the theater. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to episode 75 of Saturday Matinee Theatre, brought to you by your friends at the LONGBOX CRUSADE. It's 75 episodes, Pat. Can you believe it?
I cannot believe it, Jared. I'm so excited. Are you excited?
I am excited. At 75, man.
75.
We've made it to quite the landmark. We are just 25 away from 100.
I think that's right. I think that math adds up. Maybe.
We do it for you here at LONGBOX CRUSADE.
We'll check with Laurel.
Laurel, yeah, we'll get with Laurel. While we're doing that, just a reminder, we are here in jolly old England in our recording studio that we have set up inside Sherwood Forest. I am your host, Jared Albrecht, the art sale artist, and joining me, as always, is, of course, the little John to my Robin Hood. It is Pat Sampson. It is DJ Christados. How are we feeling on episode 75, DJ Christados?
Well, Jared, you know, it's been 75 episodes, and it's finally come to my attention, and something that's kind of true is that I have a heart of a dove, spirit of an eagle, and a face of a barn owl that, you know, I'm glad we're podcasting so people can't see my face.
Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo.
Jared, in some circles, that's called a reverse Brave Star.
Yes. Yes.
I'm glad you got it, Pat, because I was like, I feel like Del was writing jokes just for me. At this
No, I remember something.
Well done, Delvin. Well done. Oh, I love it. I love it. Also joining me is the ugliest Maid Marian of all time. It is my older, wiser brother, Jason the Weasel Skull Albrecht. And how are you today for the 75th episode of Saturday Matinee Theatre, Jason?
Feeling pretty good. I can still wield a sword, although I'm a little bit past my prime and maybe a little heavier than I should be.
You know, I'm with you, but, you still get it done. And that's what's important. Let me take a quick draw off my cigarette before I introduce the next one.
I'm talking
you
good.
Pass that around?
Like a podcaster should.
All right, let's get to our very own lovable Friar Tuck. Got introduced in this episode. It is Delvin, the Dark Web Williams. How do you do, Friar Williams, on this 75th episode of Saturday Matinee Theatre?
I'm doing well. You're Jared Albrecht, the yard sale artist, aren't you?
Maybe.
I mean, you call me by some name, some friar name. I'm like, I don't know if you think that's who I am, but it's not me. It's
a lot of mistrust going on.
You walk about an hour that way. That's probably where you're going to find the friar, but that's not me.
So you're all right. We'll figure it all out by then. Well, that is our regular crew for this 75th episode, and we have with us a very special guest. If you are on Twitter and you like Robin Hood and you are not following the Bold Outlaw, he's at Bold Outlaw on Twitter. You need to. He's just chock full of Robin Hood knowledge, and it doesn't stop there either. I want to welcome Alan, a.k.a. the Bold Outlaw, to our show. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be in this polybagged special 75th episode.
It's die cut. It's got an embossed cover. Comes with a trading card.
Yep.
Alan, you get to answer the question that our guests who first appear on the show always get to answer. What is your first memory of Robin Hood? And then following on to that, what's your favorite iteration of Robin Hood? You like him in certain movies, TV shows, where do you like him best? So first memory, and where do you like Robin Hood the best?
First one is hard because I feel like it's out of the fringes of my memory. It's like people always say it's always been there. So as your previous guest said, Rocket Robin Hood, which because it was animated in Canada and voiced in Canada, is showing on Canadian channels for decades, where they have to have so much Canadian TV a day to meet content regulations. So Rocket Robin Hood, the 30th century descendants of Robin Hood, is certainly one of the first things I remember.
That means that Alan Porter, when he was on the show, wasn't making that up like we all thought he was.
I honestly thought I got a split personality and developed a British accent, because my answers to your next question are the same as his as well. That's the scary thing.
Oh wow! So your favorite iteration wasn't his?
He had 2, I understand. I haven't heard the second episode yet, but he was alluding to the second episode he would have another one on it that I liked. So
the first one, didn't he pick like the classic
Errol Flynn
one? Yeah.
Adventures of Robin Hood from 1938.
Yeah.
But then I think he liked Kevin Costner.
Well, not that, but Robin of Sherwood, which Kevin Costner took a lot from. Yeah. But Robin of Sherwood, 1980s British series with Michael Praed, and then Jason Connery, the son of Sean Connery, took over as Robin Hood, and very mystical, and probably, those are tied for my favorites. I mean, I have a lot of favorites. And then I would say the ballads, the early medieval ballads, because I'm a geek that way.
Oh, fancy. I like it. No, I told you guys, listeners, I told you this guy knows his Robin Hood in, out, up, down, left, right, and sideways. Well, I'm sure we'll get to learn a little bit more about Alan's knowledge. But before we do that, we got to have Pat tell those listeners out there, if you're coming in here on episode 75, it's your first time. Well, we want to say welcome, and Pat's going to tell you what the show's all about.
All right, Jared, I'm glad you asked. Saturday Matinee Theatre is a retro review, sometimes index show brought to you by the LONGBOX CRUSADE, where we will be taking you back to the past with some potentially overlooked retro awesomeness in the realm of television, movie serials, or films for the last 74 episodes. Can you believe it? Wow. Basically.
Wow. Sorry, I was like.
Wow. Basically, if it's vintage and it's kind of forgotten, we're going to dig it up. On this episode, we will continue our indexing of all 39 episodes of the 1955 television series, The Adventures of Robin Hood. 1955's Robin Hood was produced by Sapphire Films, run by Hannah Weinstein and Sidney Cole. It starred Richard Green as Robin Hood and Alan Wheatley as a sheriff of Nottingham. So take refuge in the forest, take off your quiver of arrows, get cozy around the fire, and let the gregarious music of merry men whisk you away into the past. But don't forget the vow of humility.
Now, before we hand it over to Delvin for this episode's information, let's take a look, or in this case, a listen to a commercial that would have been playing at the time this episode was released back in 1955. This will help us get into the right time frame of mind, transport us back to the 50s. And for this episode's commercial retro rewind, we have Winston cigarettes.
Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. Winston tastes good like a cigarette should. Winston gives you real flavorful, rich tobacco flavor. Winston's easy drawing too. The filter lets the flavor through. Winston tastes good like a cigarette should.
All right. We will start with our guest, Alan. What did you think of that commercial? You ready to go buy a pack?
Yeah, well, it's my middle name, Winston. So
nice.
It's a catchy jingle, and still being sung by Fred Flintstone like a decade later. The Flintstones, yeah, that's why I know them best for, is the Flintstones sponsoring them. But it was fun. It's cute and probably caused a lot of health issues for kids. It's charming.
It did have a certain charm. Now, Pat, you're next on the script. I know the charm worked on you.
Oh, yes, sure, yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, what I like about it is when I think about cigarettes, I think about cigarettes that have flavor.
Right.
And how can you not think of Winston cigarettes with that flavor that they just have? It's so... Just a minute here while I light one up myself here just to enjoy it. Yeah. It's good flavor, Jared. Here, let me pass this around. And we'll just
I'll try one. Go ahead.
It got to you too, didn't it? Here you go.
The marketing worked so well on us, Pat. I have a follow-up question for Pat before we go to Jason. You're next, so be thinking about what you. Pat,
Yeah, dear. Yeah.
question for you, because behind the scenes, I don't know about Mr. Alan Winston over there, but I know of us, you're the only actual former smoker. Did you ever smoke
Jared.
the
Yep,
Winston?
yep.
Did you?
Yeah.
Were you ever smoke the Winston, or did not?
I don't know. Maybe I've tried a Winston in the past when you bum one off of somebody, but
Okay, it wasn't your brand though.
No, it wasn't my brand. No, I had a couple brands that I preferred, but because I liked the flavor. I'm all about the flavor.
All right, I think we've let Pat go too far. We'll work on that. Well, Jason, what did you think of this commercial?
Yeah, pass that over here real quick. Oh, that is tasty. I didn't know cigarettes tasted so good.
They do.
Boy, that is a catchy jingle. It makes me want to smoke 2 packs a day, come back after a hard day's work. First, I want to get up in the morning and make sure I have my steak and eggs.
Yes.
Steak and eggs, 4 cups of coffee. And then I'm going to go to work and eat more eggs. Come back, have a dinner of eggs with some steak.
Some cigarettes.
Smoke some cigarettes.
Take your car apart.
Take my car apart. Put the car back together. And, I'll die by 55 of heart disease. But what a life.
He went full speed. Oh, I love it. Delvin.
2 things. One, the life cycle of Jason's toilet would be much, much lower than 55 years on that diet. and 2,
that's 1955 toilet, though, Delvin. They built them to last back then.
It's true. They were made out of titanium. And for Pat, I hope you guys know, those were not Winston cigarettes that he was passing around.
Oh, no.
Hey.
But no, sorry.
It tastes
What
so
happens
good.
in the forest stays in the forest,
Right. Sorry. That was irresponsible of me. The thing that I thought about, a very short commercial, wasn't even 40 seconds. I heard the jingle and I'm very darkly thought, what if the person was singing that jingle after 30 years of smoking Winston cigarettes? How would that jingle sound?
Winston.
Give you some Winstons.
Sounds like Marge's sisters.
They taste so good. It's dark. I'm sorry. That's just where my head went. Cigarettes kill folks. You probably shouldn't smoke them. If anything, it was just insidious how catchy it was. It was. You're sitting there just nodding your head this is kind of a bop, man. This is so yeah. I was impressed but kind of mad at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Did you notice how they stressed it being filter, the filter on it?
Yes.
And
filter lets the flavor through.
And I just thought of the opening episode of Mad Men where Don Draper is doing the ad campaign for Lucky Strike in the 60s, and they're going against the whole reports of cancer. And he goes, well, describe it to me. And they explain how it's toasted. That's it. And they're like, but they're all toasted. No, everyone else's cigarettes cause cancer. Yours are toasted. I feel like that here. Yours have a filter.
And the filter let the flavor through.
Yeah.
And the cancer.
But mostly the flavor. I'm lying. It's the cancer.
So while I try to figure out what Pat passed around, I think the 75th episode is brought to you by PCP.
No heroin.
Well, I'm in Canada where it's legal, so
All right.
you're all covered.
We're covered by international Canadian podcast law.
It's totally a thing.
It's a thing.
You know, sometimes when I travel to Whidbey Island, I can pick up the Canadian signal on my phone. So maybe by transitory properties, I can get
There you go.
also covered under Canadian law.
Delvin, do your job. Put the cigarette down.
You talking about? You see me with no cigarette. Excuse me. Episode 4 was titled Tire. I just had to say it. I'm sorry. That was not mature. I saw it. I'm like, I gotta go for it. All right, now you get mature, responsible, Delvin. Episode 4 was titled Friar Tuck. The original date was 16 October 1955. Director Ralph Smart, writer Eric Heath, which is a pseudonym for Ring Lardner Jr., with guest stars Alexander Gage as Friar Tuck, Leslie Phillips as Sir William of Malmesbury, Douglas Wilmer as Lord Germain, John Drake as Harold, and Faith Bailey as Mildred. As a reminder, all 39 episodes are available on YouTube. We highly encourage you to watch this episode before proceeding with this podcast, because not only is it just more fun that way, but Jared is about to give a synopsis about this episode, and then we're going to discuss it. Probably some spoilers heading your way, so if you hadn't watched this episode, we recommend you pause here, check it out on YouTube, come back to join our discussion. It's about 26 minutes, y'all. Not big of a time demand. For those of you who are watching along with us, we'd love to hear your insights. Don't forget to comment about the show on Twitter using the hashtag I'm following Robin Hood Jared.
Hashtag I'm following Robin Hood.
Excellent. Excellent. Pat.
Hashtag I'm following Robin Hood.
Key change. There's a key change there. Gotcha. Nice. Jason.
I want that level of enthusiasm with mine, Pat. I noticed that you pumped it up like two levels from when you did Jared. I don't want that Jared level enthusiasm. I want that Pat Sampson level of enthusiasm. Here we go. Hashtag I'm a following Robin Hood.
That may have been the most that I've ever heard Jason harmonize. That was nice. Good job, Jason. I guess it's my turn. You go for it, Pat. Give me something. Hashtag I'm following Robin Hood. Alan, would you like to join in on the fun here?
I can try.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Hashtag I'm following Robin Hood.
Beautiful, my friend. That might be hitting that cigarette just a little bit too much. Before we go too far, let's turn it over to Jared for the episode summary.
Easy, Pat.
I'm like Eddie Van Halen. I got the cigarette up in the.
All right, let's see. Pat has run away like a train running off the tracks. Let's get this plot summary done. Friar Tuck sends a note via Joan at the Blue Boar Inn, wishing to meet with Robin Hood. Unsure if Tuck is on the side of the sheriff or the side of the outlaws, Robin goes on a solo mission undercover to determine what sort of man the friar is. Upon meeting, both Robin, undercover as a fellow friar, and Tuck hold their cards close to their vest, trying to determine each other's motives. Eventually, they duel, and Robin is taken down by a surprise attack by Mildred, a woman seeking sanctuary in the friar's temple. Mildred wants to marry Harold, but the lord of her land, Lord Germain, has promised her to one of his noblemen, Sir William. From there, Robin and Tuck join forces to dupe the aristocrats and make sure that Harold and Mildred end up together. And from there, a legendary bond is forged as Robin and the friar become fast friends. Okay, it is time to get into the highs, the lows, the what does. The Joan at the Blue Boar Inn is hot. That one girl getting dressed in her outfit was kind of a turn on.
For Sir William, it's the Blue Balls Inn, am I right?
And Jason started early. All right, let's talk about highs, lows, what does in the first round with our guests, the Bold Outlaw. Do you have a high? Do you have a low or a what the? What are you bringing in round one, Alan?
I think for round one, I will go with exchange of dialogue where William advises Friar Tuck. He says, it's not a very sound idea to make an enemy of that particular lord. And Tuck responds, nor of my particular lord, Sir William.
Ooh.
That's probably my favorite line in the whole episode. The one when I saw him, like, oh, I remember that line.
It was a good one. No, that was what the kids would call baller.
That was
back in like
sass,
We dropped the mic at
2012.
that point.
I don't know. I don't know if they still say that now, but no, I read you, Alan. That was an excellent line. That was really cool. Pat, speaking of dropping the mic, you have the mic.
What I found interesting, and because this is the 75th episode and all the other episodes of what we've kind of watched, this one reminded me a lot of Sherlock Holmes, where Sherlock would kind of get dressed up in his disguise and start trying to dupe people. And granted, this wasn't, we knew it was Robin and all that, but I just thought, brought me back to that time where they could put on something, put on a hood, and nobody's going to know who he is, and he can just kind of stroll up and fake people out. So I really like that. Robin tries to put on these disguises and tries to dupe people. We've seen it before in a couple other episodes, I think, where he dresses up as somebody or, and I like it. It's fun.
It is indeed fun, and the dupage worked kind of pretty well. It's definitely a fun one to watch them match wits, but I don't, there's still a lot to talk about. I don't want to take anybody's turn. So, Jason, we talking about matching wits, or you got something else to talk about?
I'm going to throw some love to Sir William. I kind of chided him a little bit there a minute ago, but he wasn't that bad of a dude.
No,
really.
He wasn't.
And I thought that was kind of an interesting take. These villains aren't just one-dimensional. This world isn't just good versus evil. There are people like Sir William in it that at the end of the day, he kind of did the right thing. He was kind of led that way by Friar Tuck and Robin Hood, but I have to give the man credit. He realized he was not going to be able to get what he wanted and walked away. So, interesting cat, Sir William.
Definitely caught my attention as well. I was like, yeah, like you said, in a lot of these old-timey shows, it's either black hats or white hats, And this guy was like, yeah, I want this girl, but it didn't take much convincing. He's like, she's just going to be miserable. She's with me the whole time. That's no fun, right? So
even more so, I'm going to be miserable.
Yeah. He had sort of this glorious practicality about him. I completely agree. Definitely caught my attention. Delvin, what caught your attention?
What caught my attention is they introduced the dynamic between Robin and Friar Tuck, and that was fun. It was a little less, there was confrontation that they kind of pushed each other into, it was funny. They were posturing with each other, but like goading each other, but like neither one of them really wanted to fight. But it was a little bit different from how Little John was introduced, where that was definitely more of just, a physical confrontation right from the start. This was more of a match of wits more than anything. And even towards the end, where Friar Tuck repeated the line about him being like a rascal or whatever, except this time it was more just lovingly. It was a nice callback to it, to where they kind of see each other as intellectual equals. And as they grew in their relationship, they kind of played off of it. And I thought it was a great dynamic.
I agree. Definitely fun to watch them. And again, we talked about this last episode. We have a lot of high caliber writers here that are sort of fleeing the whole McCarthyism. And so I think we're seeing that again. I think we're seeing this, the same writer again. And I think he very intentionally said, okay, this is going to be a physical match and this one's going to be a mental match. And just really, really showed up really well.
Especially because the original ballads of introducing Little John and Friar Tuck and even Maid Marian are all a physical conflict. So I think that adding that mental match to it really enhanced it from what the original was to be different. I think you're absolutely right.
I appreciate that, Alan. And Alan, it's your turn to go in round two. I want to ask you a question and you can answer it and then take another topic. I don't want to put a topic in your mouth, but as I was watching this one and Robin had kind of tricked Friar Tuck into carrying him across the river.
Yeah.
And then Tuck dumped him halfway. I felt like I might have seen that before. Is that a common piece of lore?
That is right from a play in 1560 that was published. And it then turns up in a ballad, Robin Hood and the Curdled Friar. And from that, most of the children's books and the movies, like the Errol Flynn film and the 1952 story of Robin Hood and its merry men from Disney that came out with Richard Todd. That's an influence on this as well. That scene with Friar Tuck and crossing the water and dumping him in the stream, that's in all of them. So I think it's something that the audiences would come to it and they would expect to see that.
It definitely did feel familiar.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't know that, Jared.
Yeah.
That's pretty common knowledge.
Yeah. And,
Alan's citations, which I'm prepared to accept, all sound correct to me.
Yeah. It's, I was going to say one of the ones is the Howard Pyle 1883 novel, The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, which has been reprinted from basically 1883 up to now, and is, especially for his illustrations, it's got some old-timey writing, but the illustrations are classic American illustrator. He also trained the Wyeth family of illustrators, if you're familiar with that. So N.C. Wyeth and Andrew Wyeth and things all come from his school. And he does something where he combines it with the story of Alan the Dale, which is about a young man who wants to marry a woman, and she is betrothed, to use a phrase from Bill and Ted's, a royal ugly dude. So that and he sort of starts the Alan the Dale story, which is from an old ballad. And then in the original Alan the Dale ballad, they just have Little John dress up to marry them. But in Pyle's version, it's let's go get a friar. And then they segue into the Friar Tuck ballad and then back into the Alan the Dale one. So having those two lovers, that's another trope that they borrow, though again the mental battle of wits, that's pretty new to this episode, and just the genius of Ring Lardner Jr. and Ian McClellan Hunter as the two writers. And I guess to drop more knowledge, I would say the use of history, which is something that the writers use a lot of. And you have the concept of the church being a sanctuary, which is absolutely true in medieval law, very strict in medieval law. You still see it unofficially today, that churches have the rights to, especially with refugees, that they can take them into the church. And certainly, I was looking it up, that in Canada, in the last 30 or so years of this tradition having been revived, the Canadian government's never disputed it. They've allowed churches to have that right of sanctuary. That was a genuine medieval tradition that's there. The threat of excommunication that Tuck gives, which freaks Sir William out, that's a genuine thing that happened in the Middle Ages. You'd be cut off from the body of Christ. You would not be able to have confession. You wouldn't be able to go to church. You wouldn't be buried as a Christian, which means you'd essentially go to hell. So that's just to say, when William's freaked out about that line, there is a reason to it. All of this history in there. And then the best one is Robin Hood wants Friar Tuck to say Mass at Whit Sunday, which is 50 days after Easter. So it's the Sunday after Easter, or 49 days after Easter. And that is actually when the Robin Hood plays in early modern England, including the first one to have the friar, Robin and him carry each over on the back, that whole thing. That play was going to be performed on Whit Sunday. And that is the feast that Robin Hood wants Friar Tuck to officiate at. So I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the writers actually knew that much and put it in there, because there are lots of things in this show where you're like, wow, they've done their reading.
Clearly. And what I've learned from this is that Alan is to Robin Hood what I am to two Timothy Dalton James Bond films. All right. This is why we had Alan on the show, ladies and gentlemen. When I told you this guy knows this stuff, he knows this stuff. Again, he's at Bold Outlaw on Twitter. If you're into this, he is very smart. And thank you for that, Alan.
Yeah.
And I think he's got more stuff for you.
Yeah,
guys.
I've got
just
more stuff.
He does. But for now, we will go to Pat and Round. Yeah, follow that, Pat. I like the sword fight.
I like to spin the sword around the back move.
What do you got, Pat?
It's interesting to listen to all these facts that Alan has. Watching this reminds me of how much I'm really liking this series, because it's a slow burn. You know, it's not just like the first episode. We saw everybody together, all the characters we know and love from iterations of Robin Hood. From what Alan is saying, you can hear the many different iterations and how long this, I'll call it a legend, has been around. It's wow. This is just way amazing to me to understand this and to hear these little facts. And was this the first time this happened that, him and Tuck had some fun together and going in the water? That was a funny part. I really liked that part. That made me laugh. But just to understand where these pieces come from and to see the history of it just unfold every, decade or so, how it changes and gets spun around differently in a newer take for people. This really is something to watch and look at.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's fun to watch them build this brick by brick. Jason.
I'll just build off of that. As I was watching this, and this is our 4th episode now, I literally started getting those feelings of excitement and anticipation that I got when the Marvel movies started coming out and they started building towards that first Avengers movie. I'm feeling kind of that with each of these episodes. It's like, oh, here's this other cool character that's joining the team. And now we got Friar Tuck. And so with each one that comes together, it just really made me realize how this is kind of like one of the original kind of super teams that have come together, and how much I'm enjoying watching them build this camaraderie and this fighting unit and this family together. And I just, again, got to give it up for Robin Hood. I think this series is one of the more complex, at least in the ones that we've kind of dived into. When I compare it to like Flash Gordon, which was very cool, but Flash was always kind of like one-dimensional. You always knew what you were going to get with him. With Robin Hood, he's not necessarily the best fighter, although he's really proficient. He's fought Little John, and Little John's no slouch himself. He can match wits with Friar Tuck, but Friar Tuck's clever himself. But what he does is he really just brings out the best in people and knows how to motivate them and knows how to lead and knows just how to get into their psyche and bring them into his fold. And it's just something that, I don't know, just really enjoying this and really surprised to show this age just how complex these characters are. And it's just a lot of fun.
Absolutely. On this Saturday Matinee Theater here at episode 75, we've did all the 54 Sherlock Holmes. We did all the original Flash Gordon serial. Then we moved into the Batman serial. Boo, right? Unfortunately, Batman is airing at the same time as Robin Hood, because those are the two we're covering simultaneously now. And of those 4, this is the only one I knew nothing about. Like, I found the DVD set and I had it, so we put it out there. The Crusaders Club members voted, and I didn't know what we were going to get. I did not know this was going to be the best storytelling of the 4. And that's saying, because we all love Sherlock Holmes, right? But it's like layered storytelling wise, this has more layers.
Yes.
I still like watching Sherlock Holmes a whole lot. But
it was fun. And Flash Gordon was fun too. But this one is just, like you said, layered, complex. This is a really fun series.
I think it's got a good balance of it all. The complexity, the character layering going on, and the funness of it. I mean, this was a fun episode to watch as well, too. I found myself laughing at a few spots along the way. So
I really I think it was you, Pat, right? You point out the Sherlock Holmes element of disguise that Holmes does, which is something that Robin does in the ballads, but that trickster, fun playfulness in that's here, that's very Holmesian in that way.
Yeah, it is. It definitely.
They both have a gregarious way about them.
One might say that, yes.
Delvin, you get the last word on the second round.
Yeah, we have a house right now that has 2 siblings, and everyone's doting on this Robin Hood sibling. It's like, oh, look at Robin, he's shooting the arrow. It's so cute. Oh my God. And he's got his buddies and all. They're just gonna be somebody, and Bruce.
Hello, Batman.
He's like the Danny DeVito of twins.
Why are you out of your room? Oh, your face, your stupid face. That's just one more beating that Batman is taking right now. Us putting the 2 together, because I agree with what everyone has said. It does feel like it's building towards something. They made it a point to put Sheriff of Nottingham in this story. And they didn't have, well, they could have done this story without Sheriff of Nottingham. But they're like, nope, this isn't going the way I want to. Or Jermaine said, I'm calling the sheriff. And then the sheriff got there and had Robin Hood walk right past him. And he didn't know it. And then the Friar mentions, just dropped, oh, yeah, something, Robin. What? Oh, Robin Hood? And this is the second time he's done that. Like, oh, no, we like drop everything, go after him now, right now. And Robin Hood was clever and out freaking paced him again. So you can tell there's going to be a buildup. There's going to be a confrontation where either Robin Hood cannot get away or him and the sheriff are going to face off on each other. And I can't wait to see that conflict, but I also can't wait to see the buildup to it either, because it's just been a blast. I have gone to each episode, press play, and it's like, I think this is going to be great. And then I watch it and I'm like, I am not disappointed. It was so fun. And I guess I just continue to be blown away by that. I mean, not saying that I expected to be terrible. I expected nothing. I came in neutral slate, but like it went from neutral slate to the first episode. I was immediately emotionally involved because it was the veteran return home being treated like crap. And that immediately tugged on my heartstrings. And then he just turns out to be just a good human being on top of it. And just, okay, yeah, good enough. It's been a great series so far. I've really enjoyed it.
It really has. And I really like that comment you made about Friar Tuck once again using his wits, because Jermaine was like, this isn't going my way. And Friar Tuck was just like, stuff just says the Robin Hood. And the sheriff was like, screw you, Jermaine. I don't care about your problems. I got Robin Hood things to do now. He knew how to take the focus completely away from where it was. It was perfect. Yep, we're all loving this show. And now it is time to get into the fun facts. And I'm going to warn you, the facts aren't so fun. I did some digging on Alexander Gage, who was the actor who played Friar Tuck. But luckily, I have coached up our special guest, Alan. He's going to bring some more fun facts after my depressingly not so fun facts. But it's not all depressing. Alexander Gage, the guy who played Friar Tuck, he was born on July 29th, 1914 in Winchao, China, of all places, by the way. He was an actor known for the Pickwick Papers of 1952, the Adventures of Robin Hood TV series, obviously, in 1955, and the Scarlet Pimpernel in 1955. He died on August 29th of 1960 in Woking, Surrey, England. He was I cribbed this from like IMDb, a corpulent character actor, who performed on the New York stage in the 1940s and then played a succession of minor villains in British films. Of course, he is most fondly remembered as Friar Tuck, as we're watching him here. Unfortunately, he found little gainful employment after being on the show. He basically just could not find work and committed suicide by using barbiturates at the age of 46. And that is a sad end to what is a really cool character. It just breaks my heart that this clearly talented guy couldn't find work after this show. So I wonder
why.
I don't know
why he couldn't find work.
Don't know. I don't have the details on that. I just know it has a tragic end, and my fun facts are no fun. But that's why I said Alan was giving me a bunch of facts as we were leading up to the show. And I said, save some of those because I'm going to need you to save me after the fun facts because they are depressing. So I will turn it over to Alan. Alan, run off at the mouth with all your favorite things.
Okay, so to go with some actors, Alan Wheatley, the Sheriff of Nottingham. I don't know if you know this, but he was the first person exterminated by a Dalek in Doctor Who.
I did not know that.
Leslie Phillips plays Sir William, and he's a very prominent British comedian and actor, and he's the voice of the Sorting Hat in the Harry Potter movies.
So he's still getting work all those years later.
Interesting, yeah.
And Lord Germain is Douglas Wilmer, who would play Sherlock Holmes in the 60s, and has a small cameo in the Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, wow.
Then the two outlaws you see at the beginning in the Blue Boar Inn are Willoughby Gray and Victor Wolfe, and you will see them a lot in this show. You've already seen them before a few times. Victor Wolfe plays two of Robin Hood's merry men. They seem to change his name, and I think he stops wearing his wig partway through the show. So in the early episodes, he's Cedric, and certainly he looks like Cedric here. And in the later ones, he's Derwent. But there are some episodes where he plays 4 different characters in the same episode. So
wow, 4 characters in the same episode.
Yeah, so
he's a Henry Crocker.
Yeah, so that's for the actors there. The Blue Boar Inn, which you, I believe, saw last time, is from Howard Pyle's novel again from 1883. That's the pub that Robin Hood has in that novel. I don't think it was around before then. I haven't seen it used before that. The actual tavern in that's right below Nottingham Castle, carved into the rock that Nottingham Castle's on, is called the Trip to Jerusalem. And they say a few times the phrase Pax Vobiscum and Et Vobiscum Pax, which means peace be with you and peace be with you. And I think that comes from the 1819 novel Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott, which features Robin Hood and Friar Tuck. And in it, the jester Wamba dresses up as a monk to get into the castle and free his lord. And he uses that phrase, and when he changes, he puts the friar's costume on his lord, Cedric. Cedric says, I only know English. How can I pass myself off as a friar? And Wamba says, the spell lies in 2 words. Pax Vobiscum will answer all queries. If you go or come, eat or drink, bless or brand, Pax Vobiscum carries you through it all. It is as useful to a friar as a broomstick to a witch or a wand to a conjurer. So I think that its use here is probably a tip of the hat to its frequent use in Ivanhoe.
Nice.
Since you mentioned Robin Hood as a returning veteran, Stephen Knight, who is one of the foremost Robin Hood scholars, his nickname for the Richard Green Robin Hood is Squadron Leader Robin Hood, because he comes off like a World War II squadron leader. Although I would also say, especially in this episode, he comes off like a 1950s or 1960s DC Comics hero. I feel like Superman comics and Batman comics often had them kind of doing that sort of game with the villains, especially when the comics code was in place, so there was less violence, and they would use that kind of logic trickery.
That does make sense, as does the squadron leader Robin Hood, because, this is not far removed from World War II. So a lot of your writers sort of have that mold of leadership on the mind.
Yeah, I know that one of the people at one of the academic conferences I've been to, he watched it as a kid in the 50s. And he said when Robin came back in the first episode and was pretty much one of the guys says, well, you think you're so great just because you're off in war. He said, I saw my father go through that. Everyone who was watching it in the 50s knew exactly what that meant and felt like.
That is a great point. How that would resonate with the live audience. It is so close to that. Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Thank you for saving my bacon on the fun facts, Alan. Really appreciate that, Alan. This is why we had him on, folks. And with that, let's get to the Arrow rating. As a reminder, if you give this episode 5 arrows, that means you loved it. 4 means you thought it was very good. 3, it was good. And 2, it was just okay. And 1, I didn't really like it. So we will start with our guest, Alan. How many arrows are you going to shoot at this episode?
I was wondering before I watched again if I'd give it 4, but I'm giving it 5 because I think it was very funny. The banter, especially with Robin and Tuck, convincing Sir William, that psychology they do on him, especially when Robin's kind of doing that. No, he'll seem soft-hearted. Just all of that. I mean, that pushes it to a 5 for me. And at the end, when Sir William says, marry them immediately, and Robin and Tuck say in unison, yes, in a voice that sounds like Frank Nelson from the old Jack Benny show that The Simpsons parodies a lot with the yes guy. That makes it a 5 for me. Absolutely.
Love to hear it. With that, we'll go to Jason, 1 to 5.
This episode was titled Friar Tuck. We were introduced to Little John just an episode before. Expectations were high. This was going to be a hard bar to clear for me. And boy, they cleared it with several inches to spare. 5 for me.
Ooh, we are starting off hot cha-cha-cha. Pat.
Jared,
That flavor got through the filter, didn't it?
it did. But you know what? This episode also had some flavor that I was really enjoying what it was bringing to me. And we talked about it. It's great characters, great fun in this adventure as well, too. And the trickery going on. I'm at a 5 with this one. I'm just loving this series.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot of 5 love going here. Delvin, are you going to break the chain or are you going to keep it rolling?
So, truth in advertising. I saw it and I mentally just like, this is really good. And I had it at a 4, but like, I am not going to be the one to derail the train. I will completely be influenced by everyone else and give it a 5 and not feel bad about it at all because it's been fantastic. I can't even state that enough. I expected nothing and have gotten rich characters. Robin Hood is just likable as all get out. And the characters that they're introducing to complement him are also awesome. So it's like, what the heck can you say? It's been great. And I hope that the bar continues to be set at that point. There's going to be many more 5s in the future if that's the case.
And I also, Delvin, was leaning heavily towards a 4. And then something that we didn't really bring up is the moment when Robin Hood got knocked out and he was coming to, and that girl was changing clothes and it was really sexy. And he pulled a total Roger Moore James Bond and pretended to be still knocked out while he watched that go
down. he was like, I'm unconscious. He was like, what? Unconscious people don't say that.
Hey, shut up. I'm totally unconscious.
Carry on.
Which clearly bumped it to a 5 for me. So, oh man, I laughed out loud at that part too. Pat, you were talking about laughing out loud at the show. I laughed at that too. Alan, you look like you got something to say.
Yeah, I was going to say also, do you notice that Robin Hood had to have been kind of blitzed through?
He was drinking
He was drinking a lot of the friar's, quote, spring water, unquote.
He was like, you got any more of that spring water? This is the lecherous episode.
I actually thought it was just good water.
There's always one thing that gets by you.
Oh, Delvin.
I know that in other versions of Robin, like I said, I had a feeling that whole drop in the river thing was something I'd seen before, and I know what other versions of Robin Hood. The friar likes his wine. He's a wine kind of guy.
It's again keeping with the ballads and that Robin Hood would do a sort of truth test, like what have you got there, and they'd lie, and then then there's one ballad with friars and monks where they say, we've got nothing. It's, and then let's pray together and see if money appears, and then he robs them, and it's like, look, you didn't have this money before, it's come from so that whole thing about the Brookwater, that is a classic Robin Hood truth test.
Love it. I love it. All right, we're at all 5s on this show now, everybody. So clearly we can recommend at least the first 4 episodes of Robin Hood.
Hold on, Jared. We also need to recommend that everybody get up, singing.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Come on, we can't forget that.
How did I forget that? Thank God you were here, Delvin.
We're so excited.
Delvin might have missed the wine, but he didn't miss the 5. So
there we go.
Awesome. With that, let's get into the Sherwood Forest mailbag. We are thrilled to kick off these comments with special shout outs to our Crusaders Club members. These are the fine folks who have joined our crusade. They enjoy early access to special long box episodes, voting on show content, raffle prizes, so much more. These are the folks reaping the benefits and giving some much appreciated support to the show.
Angelica Wolf.
Elburn Elvis.
Blasted or stash it.
Braxton Underwood.
Captain Entropy.
Clinton Robeson.
Dave, the original battle wagon himself, Colin.
Gary V.
Gerald Green.
Jason King.
Jason Lady.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman. I hope you like Jim Jarman too.
Jim Neal.
Joe Thomas.
John Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
Kathy Bright.
Mark Ross.
Maxwell Traver,
Miranda W.
P.D. Devons.
Paul Hicks.
Rick from Jeff and Rick Present.
Rob, Captain Morgan.
Ryan Daly,
Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 6-7.
Spreadsheet, no numbers.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington.
And the Toronto Cop. If we missed anyone on the list, we apologize. Keep in mind we record these episodes well in advance of release, so if you're a recent edition, we'll add you soon. But of course, there's no problems. If we missed you or anything like that, just send us an email. contact@longboxcrusade.com. We will get it straightened out. And if you're asking, how do I join this awesome club where we give you 62% of the access? Well,
Dylan, you want to handle this one?
I got it, yeah. Jared,
yeah.
you get all the X.
Oh, my bad. Hang on, make a note.
Jared, it's definitely all the access. Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to join the Crusaders Club, which this just in gets you all the access, just go to patreon.com/longboxcrusade. For as little as $1 a month, you'll get that access. You'll be a Crusaders Club member. We have a lot of really fun folks over there. They were chatting it up earlier today. There was Pat put up some voting on what the next episode for Amazing Spider-Man Chronicles could contain. And we've got people chatting and voting, and it's a ton of fun. So, come check that out. That is patreon.com/longboxcrusade. And if you don't have the coin to put into our kitty, which is a phrase that doesn't get used enough, but you still want to help us out here, you can always write us a review on whatever platform you're listening to this on. We'd love a review, hopefully a positive one. If you got negative, constructive criticism, things to tell us, we'll take that too. And in a few moments, we'll tell you how to get in contact with us, and you can tell us those things privately, but publicly, we want that good review. Okay, we don't have any shares, likes, and retweets because I don't think the last Robin Hood has been released yet at this time. We are recording this well in advance of release. So episode 73 of Saturday Matinee Theatre has not come out yet, which was the last one we did with Robin Hood, but it'll come out soon. So there's not any feedback on this one, but we still welcome your feedback. And how do you do that? Well, one of the easiest ways is send us a voicemail. What's our phone number, you ask? I'm going to tell you. 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX. Pick up the phone. That might be the sexiest one we've ever had.
That's it for this episode of Saturday Matinee Theatre. If you'd like to hear more from us in the realm of comic books, check out the Longbox Crusade. Pat, where can they find that?
Jason, I'm glad you asked. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and all those podcatchers out there, or at www.longboxcrusade.com. We are also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and at YouTube, all at Longbox Crusade. Back to you, Jason.
Thank you, Pat. And if you're a James Bond fan and you want to hear us on our track through all things James Bond, check out On Her Majesty's Secret Podcast. Jared, where can they find that?
Well, Jason, I've got a surprise for you. I have got the latest Bond song singer, Billie Eilish, here to tell us where that can be found.
Uh-oh.
If you want iTunes podcast, and www.
I can't hear you.
No buttons.
I cannot hear you.
It's just,
could you speak up?
I'm sorry. I'm going to have her go. I'll take it over from here.
Okay.
I am absolutely childish, but here we go. Yes, Jason, James Bond stuff. You know what? You can find us anywhere podcatchers can find us. Pretty simple. On Her Majesty's Secret Podcast. Or you go directly to www.secretpodcast.podbean.com. And we are on Twitter at OHMSPod.
Thank you, Jared, and thank you, Billy, I guess. If you'd like to chat with us online, we can be found at Delvin Kick Us Off.
You can find me on Twitter at No Time to Die. Okay, probably not. Delvin.
I immediately like that version better.
DEE_RAY1977 Delvin Ray on Instagram. What about you, Pat?
He can be found in Flavor Country.
Yes. Yeah. I just want to take a moment and let you kind of listen to all the flavor that I wrote, and let me give a chance here to let me clear my throat.
While you still have one.
Yeah.
While you still have one. God.
Can find me at
You can find me on the Twitter at Christatos01. And Jarrett, where can you be found?
All right, I was still laughing at Jason's voice back there.
Sorry.
It got me good. I am at Yard Sale Artist, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. It is all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my wares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. Jason.
You can find me at Jason Albrecht on Instagram. Alan, you want to give out any location where folks can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I've got a website, www.boldoutlaw.com, which started on GeoCities back in 1997 and has been on its own server for a long time. I guess 20 years on its own URL, so and 26 years in existence. And on Twitter at Bold Outlaw, and I also take part in a podcast called Straight Out of the Federation, which is about Blake Seven, a British sci-fi series that's essentially Robin Hood meets Doctor Who meets Star Trek. That's at SO Federation on Twitter.
Well, thank you, Alan, and thanks for bringing all of your knowledge to our show today. It was great. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you. I'd love to be back.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone else, for joining us for this episode of Saturday Matinee Theater. Now it's time to restock your utility belt. Call in the boy Wonder, because our next episode will continue our journey through the 1943 Batman serial. We'll see you next episode for Chapter 13, titled 8 Steps Down. The meetup location, Gotham City.
Greatest archers to a tavern on the green. They vowed to help the people of the king. They handled all the trouble on the English country scene and still found plenty of time to sing. Robin Hood, riding through the glen. Robin Hood, with his band of men. Feared by the bad, loved by the good.
This film has been flown to the United States via Pan American World Airways.